plague update. I now have a very definite cold to go with my throat and cough. So I apologise for the quality of me. On the plus side, however, I have 2 new bulbs in my lights, so the lighting problem is hopefully a lot better than it was. I could well regret this, but while I still have a voice, I want to talk about the Hobbit movie, because, yeah. I'm not going to talk any spoilers at first, but at some point I will probably say, okay, if you haven't seen it, go away now and come back when you have, so that I can talk about some spoilery bits. First of all, I thought the movie was very, very good, and in general, very faithful to the book. The first movie is just over a third of the book. It got to about there, the end. So there is quite a lot in it, which does on the one hand make me slightly worried for the other two, because there's over a third of the book already in that film. But on the other hand, there are more things in the second half of the book that I suppose could be expanded upon. I'm kind of assuming you've read the book, but not actually giving anything away. I suppose, having now seen the movie, I can say that The Hobbit is sort of made up of, like, each chapter is kind of a different little thing happens, and they're quite separate things. They don't really link up. I mean, obviously it's all part of one big adventure, but each little thing that happens in each chapter is kind of separate to the rest. So therefore, in a movie, compared to in a book, it's very easy to just make lots of chapters that are not very long with that kind of thing in it, hence probably why The Hobbit is quite a short book. But in a movie, you can't really translate that to like 15 minutes of one kind of action scene, because it just wouldn't be worth it in a film, because all the money that you'd have to put into that 15 minutes would probably not be worth it. So you've maybe got to drag it out a bit more, and maybe sacrifice some of the bits in order to get the best movie that you can with the amount of money that you've got. Which is unfortunate that it comes down to money, but it's not surprising. Saying that though, I was very impressed with the way that each bit linked up to the others, and especially the bits that were not from The Hobbit, how well they linked up to the other bits. So I thought that was done very well. Right, I have to tell you this. Sorry, Charlotte. If you don't want any spoilers at all and haven't seen the movie, haven't read the book, go now, go see The Hobbit and then come back. If you don't mind the first, like, basic plot point being spoiled for you, which you probably know anyway, and if you don't, we'll find out in, like, the first 10-15 minutes of the film, then you can stay and listen to the story. My friend Charlotte has read The Hobbit, but she read it, she says, when she was about 9, so she really can't remember any of it. And apparently, I wasn't sat near her, but apparently it took her until pretty much the end of the film to realise that 13 of the main characters were dwarves. And that was how it linked back to the beginning, when it talked about the dwarves being kicked out of their home, and therefore the 13 dwarves were going to reclaim that. So if you've seen The Hobbit, then stay. If you haven't, go watch it. So some particular points about the film. I love Radagast. I thought that was a brilliant addition, because I know he isn't in The Hobbit, and normally I'm like one of the first people in line to complain when it's not the same as the book. But I already knew that it wouldn't be the same as the book, because I knew that Peter Jackson was going to draw on other stuff and try and link it up more with the Lord of the Rings and things. So I knew it wasn't going to be completely faithful. But I was actually very impressed with the bits from the book, how faithful they were. But I was also very impressed with Radagast, because, yeah, he was amazing. It did also go on longer than I expected, actually. I don't know what the exact running time was, but I kept sort of, for the last possibly about 15 minutes to half an hour, I kept thinking, okay, it's going to end now. Okay, they're going to stop it now. Okay, that'll be where it ends. And it didn't. It kept going more longer than I thought. I actually kind of thought that it would probably end on a cliffhanger, like when they were all stuck up in the tree being attacked. I thought that it might end there on a cliffhanger, or when everyone thought that Thorin was dead, I definitely thought that it would end it there on a cliffhanger. But it didn't. In a way, the slightly sadistic side of me wishes that it had ended on a cliffhanger, because then it would make people want to read the book, and anything that encourages people to read the book when there's the film I am in favour of. So I would have felt like a slight sort of sense of victory over people who had not read the books and were like, what happens, what happens? And I would have been like, well, I've read the book, I know what happens. Have you read the book? Clearly not. But that is kind of quite mean of me. So being nice, it ended at a good point. I was really happy with Martin Freeman as Bilbo. I thought he would be a good Bilbo, and he was. He did not disappoint. And I also really liked the characterisation of the dwarves, because it did hit me that, because really the dwarves are there more to make up numbers than anything else. Because a company of like 4 dwarves going to take back their homeland is a bit ridiculous. I mean, come on, there's only 4 of you. I mean, 13 is not a great deal better, but it is better. And it's also not too much to handle. Like, if there'd been 30 dwarves, that would have been far too many dwarves to have as, like, main characters, because they all are all pretty main characters. And of course 13 gives the point for why they need a 14th member of their company, i.e. Bilbo. But I was very impressed with how easy it was to distinguish between the dwarves in the film, because in the book I found, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to keeping track of which dwarf was which, but it was hard to keep track of every dwarf. Obviously you've got the main ones, like Thorin being the leader and Bomba being the fat one. But I was very impressed with the film and how they like expanded that, and they gave more dwarves specific personalities. Like, another example is Philly and Killy, or Feely and Keely as they say in the movie, are the young dwarves, but in the movie they're like, you can really tell that they're the young dwarves, and they're not lumped together as a pair either. Killy's got his bow and is really enthusiastic all the time, and also is the sexy dwarf, of course. And there's Ori with his sweaters and his woolly gloves. He's so adorable. It's brilliant. So yeah, I really like that. And I think as a consequence of that, I can now name all the dwarves, which I could never do from reading the books. I always forgot, and now saying that I'm gonna have to on a... Here we go then. Let's go for it in one take. Thorin, Oin, Gloin, Dori, Nori, Ori, Balin, Dwelin, Philly, Killy, Biffa, Buffa, Bomba. And I think I'll end that there before my voice goes completely, or before I cough myself to death. So I will be back tomorrow with another video. Voice or no voice, I will continue, I will finish this. So I will see you then. Goodbye.